In the 6th year of my marriage, the Duke of Liang rebelled. In the chaos, I was taken hostage by his men. They hung me from the city tower, threatening my husband to retreat. As his generals hesitated, my husband drew his bow and fired an arrow, striking me in the abdomen. I fell from the wall, the child in my womb turning to a pool of blood. He stood before his army, his expression cold. She is just a woman. How can she compare to the fate of our nation? I closed my eyes in a sea of red. Later, that same cold-hearted husband of mine knelt at my feet, begging me to look at him one more time. When James rode forth on his warhorse, I was hanging from the city wall, a long blade pressed against my neck. The rebel leader's face was a mask of madness. "If you want her to live, take your men and withdraw from the capital," he screamed. "Otherwise, even in death, I will take your woman with me." The blade pressed harder, and a line of blood appeared on my neck. The sharp pain brought a moment of clarity. Tears streamed down my face as I looked at James in the distance. My James had always been handsome, and today was no exception. Clad in black and gold armor, he looked stern and formidable. His eyes, which usually gazed at me with a smile, were now unnervingly cold. A wave of sorrow washed over me. I wanted to ask him why it had taken him so long to rescue me. I had been captured for half a month. Why was he only just arriving? He had promised to protect me. I wanted to tell him how much I hurt. The rebels hadn't killed me, but they had spared no method of torture. I also wanted to tell him that we were having a child I had just discovered I was carrying and hadn't had the chance to tell him about. This was the child he had longed for throughout our 7 years of marriage. "James, save me," I cried out, my eyes filled with hope. The next second, I saw a scornful smile play on his lips. He drew his bow, took aim. At me, I blinked, thinking I must have seen wrong. Why would James aim his arrow at me? A moment later, an arrow of black iron shot through the air straight towards me. A sharp pain tore through my abdomen. I reached down with a trembling hand and felt a palm full of blood. "It hurts, James. It hurts so much." I reached out to the man on the horse, but he didn't spare me a single glance. He waved his hand, and his soldiers, as if on cue, surged forward. In the blink of an eye, the clash of swords filled the air. I collapsed in a pool of my own blood, hearing only his cold, hard voice. "A mere woman. How can she stop my army?" "Yes, just a woman." James was never short of women. I closed my eyes, a single tear tracing a path from the corner of my eye. Perhaps because I was dying. In a daze, I seemed to return to the day I first met James. It was a cold, snowy day. I had gone with my mother to a temple in the mountains to pray. A heavy snowstorm trapped us there, and we had to wait for the snow to clear before we could leave. Life in the temple was dull. I was young and restless, and after 2 days, I snuck away with my maid to the back of the mountain. That is where I found him. He was lying in the vast expanse of snow, snowflakes falling around him, gradually burying him under a thick blanket. I hadn't noticed him at first, and was happily rolling a snowball with my maid. The snowball grew larger and larger. Just as I was having the time of my life, my foot hit something. A muffled groan came from beneath the snow. I dug away the snow and found myself face to face with a young boy who was struggling to open his eyes. "Ah!" I screamed before I could react. He passed out. Only then did I see the blood streaming from his head, guided by a sense of duty. I brought him back to the temple and had the physician in our retinue treat him. When he awoke, he didn't speak, only looked at me with his glass-like eyes. I blinked back at him, my mind filled with a single thought. He was like a delicate, fragile porcelain doll. The porcelain doll didn't talk much, but he had a good temper. During those days we were snowed in, he stayed by my side, day after day. When early spring came and the snow melted, my mother and I left the mountain. It was only then that I learned the porcelain doll was the 7th prince. Because I had saved his life, an imperial edict was issued. Amidst the sound of gongs and drums, and with my parents' tearful farewells, I was carried in a swaying bridal sedan to marry that beautiful porcelain doll. On our wedding night, holding a round, red apple, I still felt a sense of unreality. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped in, lifting my veil. I slowly opened my eyes and met a pair of cold, clear eyes. But in an instant, those eyes crinkled with a smile, the coldness vanishing. He looked at me, beaming. "Ava, have you been waiting long?" Ava, my name. Hearing it from his lips made me blush. He was so beautiful when he smiled. My head felt dizzy, and my world narrowed to just him. I blushed and whispered, "Husband, you are so beautiful." He was taken aback, then a suppressed laugh rumbled in his chest. "Ava, I will be good to you, for a lifetime, I swear it." After he finished laughing, his expression turned serious. He cupped my face and made his vow, word by word, 16-year-old. Ava could not resist such a declaration. She foolishly leaned forward, her pink lips gently pressing against his cheek, accepting his promise. "You are my husband. I am allowed to kiss you," I said, with a confidence that surprised even me. James stared at me stunned, then burst into a soft laugh. "Ava is right. I am yours." He smiled and lowered the bed curtains. The wedding night, a sea of red. All I could hear was my name, whispered over and over, tender and loving. James. The next moment, the Red Sea receded, replaced by the image of me lying in a pool of blood. A blood-soaked infant was crying before me. "Mother, why didn't you want me?" In an instant, I felt as if I had been struck by lightning, my body trembling. My heart felt as if it were being torn apart, the pain so intense I could hardly breathe. "My child, I didn't abandon you." I reached for him, but he dissolved into a pool of blood, a shockingly bright red. I looked at my blood-covered hands, unable to distinguish dream from reality. On one hand, his wedding night vows, so familiar they felt as if they were spoken just moments ago. On the other, a crying infant covered in blood, asking why I didn't want him. I woke with a start, to the silence of the room. I was lucky. When I fell from the wall, I landed on a pile of corpses, and by a strange twist of fate, survived. I was alive, but my child was gone. The arrow had hit me squarely in the abdomen. My unborn child was gone, turned into a pool of blood. James placed me in a rear courtyard of the royal residence and assigned a physician to care for me. 10 days after I woke up, I still hadn't seen James. A woman came to visit me. She was dressed beautifully, and her face seemed familiar. I vaguely remembered seeing her on the day of the battle. She had stood by James's side, a graceful figure in white. In the midst of the blood and violence, she was like a goddess descended to earth. I remembered her because, throughout the battle, she had been protected by James, her white dress remaining pristine, untouched by a single speck of dirt. But I didn't know who she was. I only sensed that she was important to him, more important, at least, than his own wife. "Who are you?" I thought. And the words came out. The woman smiled. "I am Kora, the granddaughter of Elder Corinth, James's childhood friend, and his former fiancée, and perhaps his former love." Kora spoke as she picked up a bowl of medicine, blew on a spoonful, and brought it to my lips. I stared at her red lips, her words grating on my ears. Love. Then what was I? His wife, the princess. I thought this, and again, the words came out. Kora's expression didn't change. Her voice was as gentle as water. "The arrow injured your wound. The Duke of Liang has been defeated. James is about to ascend the throne. You are his first wife. But the court and the people will not accept a barren woman as their empress." As she spoke, she suddenly grabbed the bowl, forced my chin up, and ignoring my struggles, poured the entire contents down my throat. Before I could react, the scalding liquid seared my throat. Tears filled my eyes. I tried to call for help, but the servants in the room were deaf to my cries. "Did you know James was supposed to be my husband? We were childhood friends, deeply in love, the perfect match." But unfortunately, James was weak then. The Duke of Liang held all the power, and his younger brother was the emperor's favorite. My grandfather did not approve of him, which is how you got lucky. You, the daughter of a mere merchant, became a princess by chance. But now James is about to be emperor, and his empress must be me. She released me, and the bowl shattered on the floor. The servants, as if coming back to life, rushed to hand her a handkerchief, and she wiped her fingers, one by one. I looked at the scene before me and rasped, "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that you are of low birth, and I am the Prime Minister's daughter. On the grounds that my grandfather's power is immense, that James and I were childhood friends, that when I force-fed you medicine in front of everyone, no one dared to stop me, and on the grounds that James loves me." She leaned in and whispered the last words in my ear. Before I could react, she stumbled backward, falling into the broken porcelain. Ah, it hurts. The sharp shards cut her cheek. Kora clutched her face and sobbed. "Sister Ava, I came to visit you out of kindness. Why would you harm me?" I was stunned. James's furious voice came from the doorway. "Ava, if you hate me, then hate me. Why did you have to take it out on her? Number. She fell on her own." I tried to explain, but my throat burned, and I couldn't form a single coherent sentence. I looked at the servants, pleading for one of them to speak for me. But there was no one everywhere I looked. They lowered their heads. "I thought you were injured, so I came to see you first, as soon as I was finished with my duties. Even if you hate me for hurting you, you shouldn't have harmed Kora." James's voice was cold. "A woman's appearance is everything. Ava, you have disappointed me." In that moment, a chill ran through me. 6 years of marriage, of shared days and nights, and he had not a single shred of trust in me. My disheveled state, the burns on my lips, my raw throat. I didn't believe he couldn't see the signs, but he chose to protect her. I met Kora's triumphant gaze, and my heart ached. For the next few days, you will reflect here. Copy the scriptures for 2 hours every day and pray for Kora's recovery. With that, James left, carrying Kora in his arms. "James, what if I am scarred?" "You won't be. And even if you are, I will marry you." Their voices faded as they walked away. I was suddenly reminded of a time long ago. When James and I were first married, he would always hold my hand and call me Ava with a smile. He said that from the moment he saw me in the snow, he was mine. I completely agreed. He was supposed to be mine. When I married him, he was just an unfavored prince. His mother had died young, and his father disliked him. We lived in the most remote palace, eating cold food and wearing old clothes. Our standard of living was worse than that of the Empress's maids. In the winter, we didn't even have charcoal for a fire. On top of that, as a daughter-in-law, I was required to serve the Empress daily. Once, when I was paying my respects, I ran into the infamous consort Zhao, the Duke of Liang's mother, because of a grudge from the previous generation. She despised James, and by extension, me. On a snowy day, she made me kneel in a palace corridor. Servants came and went. I knelt in the snow, which gradually melted beneath me, soaking my cotton clothes. The cold wind blew, and I shivered uncontrollably. I don't remember how long I knelt. I only remember that, as I was losing consciousness, James came through the snow and held me in his arms. His hot tears fell on my neck, making my heart tremble. He said nothing, but after I recovered, he volunteered to go to the border. Later, he fought desperately on the battlefield, earning one victory after another, transforming from an unfavored prince into a god of war. The day James was made a duke, he held me just like that, his face buried in my neck. He said, "From now on, I will never let you be bullied again." And he was true to his word. From that day on, no one in the capital dared to disrespect me. Thinking back, I had always believed he loved me. But today, for another woman, he had watched me be humiliated, had humiliated me himself. It was laughable. The moment that cold arrow struck, I had been making excuses for him. I closed my eyes, retreating into the darkness. The days passed. After the Duke of Liang's death, James, as the only remaining adult prince, was named Crown Prince. It was only a matter of time before he became emperor. The current emperor's health was failing. Sure enough, 3 days later, in the dead of night, the palace death, knell tolled. His Majesty has passed away. As the eunuch's wail pierced the night, a firework shot across the sky. I put on a robe and went to the window, gazing at the dark sky. The emperor was dead. James was going to ascend the throne, and the empress. Would it be me? I looked at the inky black sky and had my answer. Half a month later, James smoothly ascended the throne and issued a decree, making me an imperial consort. At the same time, another edict was sent to the prime minister's residence, naming his daughter, Kora, as the empress. It was laughable. We had been husband and wife since our youth, supporting each other through everything. But the moment he came to power, he demoted his wife to a concubine. I touched the decree, written in black and gold, and felt a wave of helplessness. It was as if I was trapped in an invisible net, with no way out, just waiting for the right moment to be strangled. The day before I was to enter the palace, James came to explain. I was too impulsive that day. It was my fault. Kora is young and has been spoiled. She can be a bit headstrong, but her heart is in the right place. Don't hold it against her. He spoke to me in that same gentle, coaxing tone. From now on, I will be the most powerful man in the world. Whatever you want, I will give you. I want to be empress. James was silent for a moment, then refused. Not that. Kora's status is more suitable, and she once did me a great service. I promised her I would make her empress. Then I want to leave the capital. James refused without a second thought. I fell silent, just looking at him. He softened his voice again. Ava, I know you hate me for hurting you, but that day, the rebels were using you as a hostage. If I had shown even a hint of concern for you, they would not have let you go. That arrow, I had no choice. Forgive me, please. His voice was so gentle. I looked at him. My heart filled with bitterness. If the arrow was to save me a necessary evil, then was marrying Kora also a necessary evil? Humiliating me for her, was that also a necessary evil? 1,000 emotions churned within me. The man whose face used to bring me joy now just felt like an eyesore. But what could I do? He was the emperor now. Even if I was unwilling, what could I do? My hand tightened on the silver hairpin in my sleeve, then slowly relaxed as I thought of my family. My parents had raised me. I couldn't let my own desires bring disaster upon them. Kora is a gentle and quiet person. When she becomes empress, she will take good care of you. Ava, don't be angry. After a long time, I murmured a soft, I thought things couldn't get any worse, until the day I entered the palace and Kora sent a gift. In a fine pearwood box lay a blood-stained lotus, paste jade bracelet. I recognized it. It was my mother's imperial consort. Lord Valerius has been found guilty of colluding with the rebels. By His Majesty's order, he is to be executed at noon today. I looked up sharply. Who did you say? Your father, Lord Valerius. The eunuch bowed his head respectfully. Father colluding with the rebels? James had ordered my father's execution? Impossible! I screamed. My father was an honest man who adored me. How could he be a traitor? There must be a mistake. I want to see James. I want to see him. I pushed past the servants and ran towards the hall of mental cultivation. I had to tell James my father was innocent. He could not have conspired with the Duke of Liang. My father is a man of integrity. He would never conspire with rebels. James, I am begging you, spare my father. I knelt outside the hall, kowtowing desperately. No matter how much I pleaded, there was no response from within. A pair of red embroidered shoes stopped before me. It was Kora. She looked at me in surprise. Sister, what are you doing? Normally, I would have been humiliated. But now, I didn't care. Your Majesty, please, I am begging you. Save my father. He is just a merchant. James cares for you so much. Please help me. I am begging you, save him. I scrambled to her, clinging to her legs, kowtowing again and again. It was my fault. I shouldn't have pushed you. You can beat me, curse me. I was wrong. Just spare my father. I held on to her as if she were my last hope. Kora raised an eyebrow, feigning difficulty. The edict has been issued. It cannot be retracted. She leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "Did you like the gift I sent you?" I looked up, my eyes wide with fury. "It was you. You framed my father." Kora just smiled and winked, her eyes triumphant. In that moment, rage consumed me. I lunged at her, tackling her to the ground, my hands closing around her throat. "I'll kill you!" I roared, my grip tightening. The servants finally snapped out of their shock and pulled me off her. The imperial consort is trying to murder the empress. I was forced to my knees before Kora. She gasped for air, clutching her throat, the malice in her eyes no longer hidden. "Guards, drag her away." In the chaos, a sharp voice came from inside. "Stop! It was James." A flicker of hope ignited in me. "James! She framed my father. Trust me this once. Have someone investigate." Lord Valerius conspired with the rebels. His crime is unforgivable. My words died in the face of his cold expression. You are a married woman. Your family's crimes do not concern you. From now on, be a proper imperial consort. His gaze fell on me, so cold it made me tremble. "Ava, you must be sensible." I stared at his retreating back, all my strength draining away as I collapsed to the ground. "Don't blame me for being cruel. Blame your own bad luck. As long as you are alive, my position as empress is not secure." Kora's voice drifted over to me. She stood beside me, her expression a mixture of contempt and pity. "If you were sensible, you would have taken poison the day James ascended the throne. Perhaps if I were in a good mood, I would have spared your family. But I was not sensible, so she made me watch my family die. Imperial consort, the traitor Lord Valerius, is to be executed at noon. Her Majesty, the Empress is merciful, and has granted you permission to witness the execution, so you may see your family one last time." I was dragged to the execution grounds. A crowd of onlookers had gathered, throwing rotten vegetables and stones at the figure on the platform. The frail, old man kept his head bowed, silent until he saw me. My father looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. His lips moved, forming silent words. I saw them clearly. "Ava, run. My father, I can't save you." The executioner's blade fell, and my father's blood splattered across my face. The guards held me tightly until his body was carried away. My father was dead, executed for treason. His body was sent back to our home. My mother couldn't bear the shock. She developed a high fever that night and followed him. The men of my family were exiled. On the road, they were attacked by bandits. Some died, some were maimed. When the guards arrived, they only brought back half of my younger brother's remains. And the other half. The man below me lowered his head. The other half was likely taken by wolves. Wolves, wolves, what a fine wolf. I burst into crazed laughter. The biggest wolf of all is right beside me. It was me. I was the one who trusted the wrong person and caused the death of my family. My father, my mother, my brothers, all gone. It was my fault. It was all my fault. I clutched my head, sinking into a world of pain, unable to distinguish day from night. I smashed every piece of porcelain in the room, screaming, howling, destroying everything I could see and touch. Finally, I knelt among the shards, feeling a sense of release. It should have been like this. It should have been like this all along. It was all my fault. I killed them. My parents were so good. If it weren't for me, they wouldn't have died. If I had died, they would have been fine. I was the one who should have died. I knelt among the shards, wailing, my tears flowing freely. The porcelain cut into my flesh, but I felt no pain. "Mother, father, I am coming to join you." I picked up a shard and without hesitation pressed it to my neck. As the blood gushed out, I heard James's voice. "Ava." I looked up and saw his red-rimmed eyes. He grabbed the shard, and blood streamed from between his fingers. He said, "Ava, don't do this." I looked at his moving lips. My mind filled with a sense of absurdity. It was too absurd. I gave him a smile that was more painful than a cry. "James, it hurts so much." The next moment, I clenched the silver hairpin in my hand and stabbed it into the back of his neck, with a tearing sound. The pin pierced his hand and scraped a bloody line across his face. Ava. James stared at me in disbelief. My only regret is not killing you. I collapsed to the ground, my eyes filled with hatred. You killed my child. You killed my family. I want your life. James froze. If I hear anything. The servants fell silent, not daring to breathe. I raised the hairpin again. This time, he didn't block it. He let it sink into his shoulder. Ava, we can have more children. I clutched my head, a roaring in my ears. What about my father? My mother? My family? He couldn't answer. Only watch as I descended into madness. I drifted in and out of consciousness, dreaming of my childhood. My mother holding me on her lap, teaching me to read. My father sitting nearby, the clatter of his abacus, a constant rhythm, occasionally chiming in to make my mother laugh. A shower of petals fell around us. The world was filled with laughter. Father, mother, I miss you so much, but when I opened my eyes, they were gone. So I retreated into my dreams, more and more unwilling to wake. Ava, wake up, James pleaded, sitting by my bed. But I wouldn't open my eyes. I lived in a daze for half a month until one sunny day, the sound of firecrackers woke me with a start. My maid Aurelia saw I was awake and burst into tears. My lady, you are finally awake. What is happening outside? I asked, staring at the bright sunlight. It is the Empress's coronation ceremony? Coronation? Kora's coronation? The weather was exceptionally beautiful. The sun shone through the clouds, warming my skin. I murmured the words, then a smile spread across my face. Aurelia, go to the Dragon Zenith Palace. Tell them I am awake and crying for James? My lady. Aurelia looked terrified. She had been with me since we were children and was the person I trusted most, my only remaining family. Go. I stroked her head and smiled reassuringly. He will come. Aurelia nodded, wiped her tears, and left. When James rushed over, he found me sitting amidst the wreckage of the room, like a broken doll, devoid of life. Ava. A hot tear fell on my hand. I looked at him numbly. James, do you love me? I love you, he answered without hesitation. I suddenly grew calm and looked at him intently, seeing the lingering love in his red-rimmed eyes. James, my child is gone. My father is dead. My mother, my brothers, they are all dead. Even my husband belongs to someone else. I have nothing left. I wrapped my arms around his neck and whispered, James, I have nothing left. A tear fell on my shoulder. James shuddered, suddenly realizing that the clothes that used to fit her so well were now hanging loosely on her frame. Her thin body was hidden within them, as if she could disappear at any moment. The vivid scar on her neck, all of it told him that Ava was not well. Perhaps if he had come a moment later, he might have never seen her again. This thought sent a wave of panic through him, and he hugged her tightly. You still have me. I will always be with you, always. I leaned against him, listening to the beat of his heart. James, you are all I have. Don't abandon me. The arms holding me tightened. James was about to speak when a eunuch announced, Your Majesty, the Empress requests your presence. The ceremony is about to begin, and she fears it will be delayed. James paused. For the coronation, he was supposed to accompany the Empress to the ancestral temple and receive the court's congratulations. But I was tugging on his sleeve, looking at him silently. So pale I looked, as if I could faint at any moment. James was silent for a moment, then said, Tell the Empress I will not be going. Have the ceremonial official accompany her. The ceremony will proceed as planned. Ava, don't be afraid. I am here with you. Not long after the eunuch left, Kora, in her empress robes, stormed in. Seeing me, she swallowed her anger and forced a smile at James. James, the coronation is a matter of royal prestige. The entire court is present. If you don't go, they will look down on me. For my sake, please, just go. Kora's position as empress was already on shaky ground. If the coronation ceremony went awry, how could she establish herself in the palace? James thought for a moment, then turned to me. Ava, wait for me in the palace. I will come back to you tonight. He was already on his way out. Kora finally smiled, satisfied. She turned to me. After the coronation, according to custom, the imperial consort must serve the empress a cup of tea to make her position official. I nodded. All right. The next moment, my eyes rolled back, and I collapsed. James, she is faking it. Before I lost consciousness, I heard Kora's furious voice. In the end, James stayed. When I came to, the imperial physician was checking my pulse. Her Highness seems to be suffering from some spotting, likely from the injury during her miscarriage. At the mention of the child, a shadow of sadness crossed James's face. It was our first child, who should have been born into a world of love and happiness. I wrapped my arms around his waist and leaned against him, weeping silently. James stayed with me all night. The next day, Kora, unable to contain her anger any longer, had a huge fight with him. Without my family's help, how could you have ever ascended the throne? She screamed in a fit of rage. James stormed out, and the emperor and empress were now in a cold war. When the news reached me, I was staring at a strange mushroom-like plant in a book. The Camellia lignea, found in the miasmic regions of the northwest. When ground into a powder and used as incense, it could cause irritability and anger in those who inhaled it. I had always loved reading miscellaneous books and travelogues. I was no physician, but I knew a few tricks. As his arguments with Kora grew more frequent, James finally told me everything. Years ago, the late emperor had only 2 adult sons, the Duke of Liang and James. The Duke's maternal family was powerful, and he was the emperor's favorite, overshadowing James in every way. James was forced to go to the border, where he spent years building his reputation. But among the court officials, his name was not well regarded. Kora's grandfather was a great scholar of his time, with students all over the country. If James wanted the throne, he needed the Corinth family's support. The Corinthians, conveniently, did not approve of me, a merchant's daughter, and conveniently, they had a marriageable granddaughter. So James and the Corinthians made a deal, the position of empress, in exchange for their full support. My dear, the matter of your family was an accident. Elder Corinth forged the evidence of their conspiracy. By the time I found out, it was too late. The evidence had been presented in court, in front of all the officials. Even I couldn't save them. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you, in your innocence, would let something slip to Kora. My original plan was to appease the Corinth family, then find a suitable opportunity for Kora to die of illness. Then, you would have been my only empress. James paused, his eyes dark and deep. But I didn't expect that the Corinthians' ambition was for more than just the position of empress. The darkness in his eyes was so chilling that I shivered. He noticed my fear and gently stroked my hair. Don't be afraid, I am here. As if stroking a gentle pet. As if to prove his words, James soon moved against the Corinth family. In the first year of his reign, a great drought struck the northwest. The people had no harvest. As winter approached, the disaster relief grain sent by the court vanished. Refugees surrounded the capital. James was furious. An investigation revealed that the Corinth family had smuggled the grain to an enemy nation. Not only that, they had also leaked border defense maps. When this came to light, the emperor was enraged. The crime was treason. Overnight, the entire Corinth family was executed, not even sparing a 3-year-old child. After their death, war broke out on the border again. The barbarians were rampant, slaughtering and pillaging wherever they went. The 3 cities that had been lost were said to be devoid of life. As the border battles were lost one after another, at a critical moment, someone stepped forward, turned the tide, and took the enemy general's head from 1,000 miles away, striking terror into the enemy's hearts. His name was Kale. I had heard James mention this name several times before. I didn't know about the secret currents flowing between them. I only knew that in this game of chess, James had won. The Corinth family's power, my family's wealth, all were utterly destroyed. The day the Corinth family was executed, Kora knelt outside the dragon's zenith palace, weeping and begging. I was grinding ink for James. He was buried in his memorials. And when her cries reached him, his brush didn't even pause. I looked out. Kora was kowtowing, so hard that her forehead was bruised and bleeding. The once proud daughter of the Corinth family was no different from anyone else when faced with the death of her loved ones. The fine rain mixed with blood, staining the soles of the servants' shoes. I stared at her back, lost in thought. When I was very young, I had gone with my father to the Corinth estate once. The Kora of that time was a little girl who would share her candy with me. What a pity. James, it is my fault. I don't want to be empress anymore. Spare my father, spare them. Her cries faded as she was dragged away, still struggling and pleading. The promises of saving his life, of childhood friendship, all vanished in that moment. It was only when a eunuch reported that the empress was dying that James lifted his eyes. Give her a grand funeral. Yes, your majesty. After the eunuch left, James put down his brush and turned to me, as if seeking praise. Ava, she is dead. Are you happy? I forced a smile. Kora had caused the death of my family. Now that she was dead, I felt a sense of release, but I wasn't happy. Thinking of that day, I had knelt before the hall, crying and begging. In the end, I was no different from her. The rain outside stopped, the dark clouds scattered, revealing a sliver of the setting sun, like a bleeding cuckoo. I hid the emotions in my eyes and smiled, taking a string of jade beads from my sleeve. One green, one white. They're a pair. I'll keep the white one, and the green one is for you. James took the beads, intrigued. What kind of jade is this? I've never seen it before. It is just a local stone, not worth much, but I polished it myself. If you don't like it, I'll make you a better one later. I showed him the cuts on my hands from polishing the beads. Seeing them, James quickly wrapped the beads around his wrist. A gift from Ava, I am overjoyed. I wish I could wear it every day. He took my hand and asked softly, "Does it hurt?" Number. I squeezed his hand back and smiled. From that day on, James and I completely reconciled. After Kora's death, James wanted to make me empress, but I refused. James was ambitious. His mind was not on the palace harem. 3 years passed, and I was still the only woman in his palace. Empress or not, it didn't matter. Perhaps because of our past, or perhaps because my family was gone, and I had no one to rely on. James did have some affection for me. This affection deepened over time, but I was never sure how much of it was real. So, at a banquet, when an assassin suddenly appeared and aimed his blade at me, I deliberately didn't move. Ava, the sound of metal piercing flesh, but the expected pain never came. I finally knew for sure. James loved me. The sword had wounded his left arm. When the physician arrived, James was still comforting me. It is just a flesh wound. Nothing serious. I nodded, my eyes red with concern. You are so foolish. A sword has no eyes. Why did you rush over? I couldn't help it. It was you standing there. James reached out and wiped a tear from my eye. Don't cry. It is just my arm. I'll be fine. Because of the assassin, the banquet was in chaos. After everyone was settled, I rushed back to the palace, but someone blocked my path. General Kale, it is inappropriate for a man to meet with an imperial consort in private, is it not? I raised an eyebrow at him. I didn't know him, but I had heard of his fame. A young general who had turned the tide of battle, taken the enemy leader's head, and protected the people of the border cities. These were his achievements. But the first time I heard his name was from James. Kyle is a natural-born general. He was born for the battlefield. James's eyes were filled with admiration when he spoke of him. Later, I learned that Kyle was an orphan, saved by James when he was starving. James saw his potential and took him in, personally training him. They were like master and student, like friends. Their bond was deep. When James returned to the capital to fight for the throne, he left his most trusted piece on the border. The current emperor is a good emperor. He may have wronged you, but he has not wronged the people. Since he took the throne, He has purged the court of corruption. The people live in peace. The young are cared for. The old are provided for. This is his achievement, and the people's blessing. If he dies, the world will be thrown into chaos. Kale ignored me and continued his speech. I was unconcerned until he said, I was born in the Northwest. I have heard of a type of jade, shaped like the moon. When combined with a special powder, it can create a slow-acting poison. Long-term wear can take a person's life without them ever knowing. My heart skipped a beat, but my face remained impassive. What do you mean, General? Your Highness knows what I mean. Your Highness is a good person. I know your family died unjustly, but throughout history, for the sake of the majority, a minority must always be sacrificed. An emperor's goal is not fairness, but stability. I am a simple man. I only know how to fight wars. I have no intention of getting involved in personal grudges. But your grudge with His Majesty should not affect the people. With that, Kyle bowed and left. Without ever looking at me directly, I watched him go, my mind in a turmoil. Back in the Sunset Glow Palace, I flipped through a history book, but the books that usually calmed me now only agitated me. Your Highness, please calm down. Crash. The maids fell to their knees in terror. I realized I had smashed the white jade beads on my wrist. I stared at the scattered fragments, stunned. 3 years ago, I had made 2 strings of beads, one green, one white. I kept the white one and gave the green one to James. I had tampered with the beads. Combined with the incense I used, James would be dead in a year at most. I closed my eyes, Kyle's words echoing in my ears. I hated James, but I had to admit, he was a good emperor. Not exactly benevolent, but diligent. But was it right for the sacrificed minority to just accept their fate? My hand, clutching the broken beads, tightened and loosened. A war of thoughts raged in my mind. As night fell, I finally let out a long breath. Aurelia, change the incense. From now on, no more jasmine powder. The scent of jasmine was elegant, and I had grown fond of it in recent years. Aurelia probably didn't understand why I had suddenly changed my mind, but she obeyed. I watched her go, my eyes filled with a new resolve. That night, I held the man beside me tightly and whispered his name in his ear. James, I am here. Let's have a child. The man froze, then hugged me tightly. All right. A night of passion. It was 2 months later that I was diagnosed with pregnancy. When the news reached James, he was ecstatic. The memory of our lost child had become a constant ache in his heart. He had even placed a statue of a bodhisattva in his chambers. Now, he believed this child was heaven's forgiveness. If it is a boy, let's call him Ethel. What do you think? Ethel, it is a good name, I said with a smile. If it is a girl, let's call her. It won't be a girl, I interrupted. This child will be a boy. Only a boy could replace James and take over the empire. Since James couldn't die now, let him live a few more years. As long as I gave birth to this child, I would have a chance to plan. James was a diligent ruler, but I was no less capable. I didn't know the ways of the court, the mind of an emperor, but I could learn. Ava, be patient, I told myself. There was time. Our score would be settled one day. I stroked James's face, my smile gentle and serene. The year Ethel turned 7, James fell gravely ill. It started as a common cold. He took some medicine and thought nothing of it, until one morning at court, he vomited blood and collapsed. The imperial physicians diagnosed him with long-term exhaustion. They said he didn't have much time left. When the news spread, the entire court, the entire nation, mourned. But thankfully, after James, there was the crown prince. Ethel was only 7, but he was intelligent and kind. You may all leave. In the Dragon's Zenith Palace, I waved my hand and dismissed everyone. Only James and I remained. I lifted my skirts and knelt beside him, my eyes gentle and loving. James. I looked at the familiar face and whispered his name. He was very weak, lying motionless, only his occasional breaths proving he was still alive. Hearing my voice, his eyelashes fluttered, and he slowly opened his eyes, a rare clarity in them. As if sensing his end was near, he asked, "My dear, do you hate me?" "I do." "How could I not? They were my parents, my brothers. They are dead. How could I not hate you? You said they were killed by the Corinth family. I believed you at first, until I discovered that an extra 1,000,000 taels of silver had mysteriously appeared in the national treasury. The Valerius family's fortune was, coincidentally, exactly 1,000,000 taels. James sighed, and finally told the truth. When my father was on the throne, there was a saying among the people, "Of all the wealth in the world, 3 parts are in the national treasury, and 7 are with the Valerius family." It was an exaggeration, but it is true your family had amassed a great fortune. My father was incompetent and let them be, but I am not my father. This is my empire. I will not let others have a hand in it. In my life, I have trusted no one. Only you did I give a piece of my heart. It is only right that I die at your hands. It is a pity. I had planned that when Ethel was grown, I would travel the world with you, a pity. I raised an eyebrow, non-committal, and picked up the medicine bowl. I had prepared many ways for you to die. Painful, humiliating ways. But now that it has come to this, I have softened. I will give you a dignified death. I brought a spoonful of medicine to his lips. Drink. He didn't struggle and took the medicine obediently. Of course, struggling would have been futile. He had been poisoned for a long time. Even without this, he wouldn't have survived the night. Perhaps because he was dying, his gaze softened. Don't blame me in life. One must always give something up. At least, I was a good emperor, was I not? He chuckled, then added, "Make Ethel a good emperor. After I die, the empire will depend on him." "Ava, I love you, and I love our child." He smiled so openly that it made me uncomfortable. So when he mentioned Ethel, I told him, "James, you don't really think that Ethel is your child, do you?" A playful smile danced in my eyes. I gently stroked his face, my gaze soft. Ethel was my child, but only mine. His surname was Gu, not because his father's surname was Gu, but because the imperial family of Yong was named Gu. That was all. James froze. He understood my meaning and his eyes widened. A hoarse, rattling sound came from his throat, as if the air was trapped, unable to go up or down. He clutched his neck in agony, tears streaming from the corners of his eyes. I watched him struggle, watched him suffer, until he stopped breathing. His eyes were still fixed on me. I reached out and closed them for him, but my mind drifted back to that night, 18 years ago, our wedding night. The cold, aloof young man had lifted my veil and said to me, "I will be good to you for a lifetime." James. I closed my eyes. There had been love and happiness between us. Then, everything changed. I had plotted for half a lifetime, and finally returned the pain to him. Now that he was dead, our tragic story was over. I wiped away my tears and stepped out from the chorus of mourning. Outside, the sun was warm, the breeze gentle. I stood in the sunlight and turned to face the Bodhisattva statue in the hall. James didn't believe in gods, but when I was pregnant, he had, for the first time, gone to a temple and brought back this statue for me. The Bodhisattva sat high above, its face compassionate, smiling down on the sorrows of the world. On an impulse, I reached out and gave it a gentle push. The statue fell to the ground and shattered into 1,000 pieces.